Strategic management. Well, what is strategic management? Well, the textbook is that set of decisions and actions that result in the formulation and implementation of plans designed to achieve a company's objectives. So it's basically the translation of the strategy. What is the strategy? Well, it depends on the niche. It depends on the company. It depends on what they're going to go for. Later on, we'll get into more details about like Porter's generic strategies, but we all recognize that, as far as being a low-cost leader, and there's a strategy that goes with that. How do you implement it? How do you manage it? That's what the strategic management element is all about. Being able to, it starts with the mission. What is the purpose of the company? Sometimes it's translated into a vision statement, and then you have to do analysis. Do you have the whereabouts? Then we're going to talk a lot about SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Being able to recognize the environment, who is in the environment, who isn't. I mean, it's a lot about that. I mean, like when the GPS companies like Garmin, Garmin was worried about TomTom. Garmin was worried about Magellan. Yet what didn't they see coming? The iPhone. Being able to identify it. It's amazing to me that Walmart never saw Amazon coming. In the beginning, what did Amazon sell? Books. They sold videos, and Walmart's like, they're nothing. Now they sell everything and they have a unique distribution center that Walmart can't match. So they've kind of been behind. They were behind because they didn't identify their competition. They didn't identify their environment. They didn't identify the strategy to combat that. Because strategy is future-oriented. What are we going to do in the future? How do we meet our goal? What is our goal? And that's where all these things kind of line up. The mission, the vision, the strategy. All these things have to line up. And then the management of it is the coordination of all the variables. This is done by top management. The strategy formulation and so forth is done by top management. For some of you, that may be you. For some of you, it will be you. But you can see where the successes and failures can occur. Often what happens, especially as companies get larger, these things fall by the wayside because some of the people that help develop the company no longer have the skill sets necessary. Because what happens is when a company's small, they have a generic approach. So I'll give you an example. You open up a shop with your husband or wife. Say it's a burger joint. And you hire a couple people, and everything's fine. You cook. Sometimes your wife cooks, or your husband cooks, and you wear a lot of hats. You're doing a lot of things. And then when it comes to who does your taxes, well, you got an Uncle Tony. Uncle Tony takes care of the taxes. He's a butcher, but he's good in taxes. He takes care of that. What about the marketing? Well, Aunt Martha, you know what? She runs a flower shop, but she takes care of our marketing for us. And then you start to get larger. You love Uncle Tony, but he's not an accountant. So now you have to go to specialists. You love Aunt Martha, but Aunt Martha is not really what you need right now, especially as that environment changes, especially as marketing changes. So you have to go to specialists. And a lot of people that help develop the company don't have the skill sets to take it to the next level. So this affects the strategy, and it also affects the strategic management. Look at my notes, so my apologies. You have to be able to check the resources, but you want to be able, again, because all these things are future oriented. Later on, when mom and pop expands, how are you going to expand? You going to just build more of the same, like we'll have branches in a sense, or are you going to expand? Miguel's actually went the other way around. Miguel's restaurant, very fancy restaurant, very fancy Mexican restaurant, good food. Well, how do they expand? Well, they have a couple of other Miguel's, but then they went to Miguel Jr.'s, which kind of their fast food version of it. So another way to expand, but that's a different market. That's a different future. That's a different strategy, and how that's going to be managed is different. We'll talk about corporate, business, and functional level strategies and the advantages thereof. Even the hierarchies themselves. Some are mechanistic, very structured, very ordered, very segmented, very bureaucratic. You make this decision, you don't make that, that's somebody else's. Others allow for, they're called organistic, and allow for more spread. They're more learning oriented. I'm kind of watch my time too because I only got like 20 minutes is the most I can upload. But these things are very important because, again, most of you are going to be in small businesses. And small businesses, here's some interesting stats. A small business is defined as having 500 or fewer associates or employees. These small businesses account for 2/3 of all the net creation jobs. 2/3. There are 13 times more patents by small companies than by large companies. They create the majority of the jobs and represent 205 of the top total creation, 20% of all the top job creation. A small subset, 1%, of all firms that are growing with fewer than 60,000 and account for 40% of the economic wide job creation. So again, small jobs are key. Small businesses are key to the success and growth of their economy. Now, it's not unusual at all that if they're very successful, a large company may purchase them. I mean, this is what a company like Apple, when it came to, like, how do you start your phone? The thumb recognition. Apple didn't develop that. They bought a company that did. So it's not unusual for that to happen, but that's not the result of most companies. Most companies just continue to grow from small to medium to large, or they fail. So much of it depends on the size, and also as they grow. Because in the beginning, when a company is small, they're in an entrepreneurial mode. They're growing. They're they're taking more chances. There are more people wearing more hats. Their whole element is the growth. Then what happens is they get larger. They get medium-sized, if you will. They start having to adapt to their environments. They're no longer shaping their environments in their particular niche, but they're adapting. Finally, you get into the planning mode, which is what most of the larger ones are. Entrepreneurial mode are normally the owner-operator type of thing. Now, sometimes you see that expanded larger. This is why I always found it interesting that somebody like Steve Jobs, nobody was upset that he made a lot of money because they still looked at Apple as his company. Same thing with Bill Gates. Richest guy on the planet who still can't get a decent haircut, but nobody was really upset about his billions because they looked at it as his company. He's not like an employee. It's his company. And people really didn't have much of a problem with that. But they were in an entrepreneurial mode in a long, long time. Sorry. So much of this, of course, starts with the CEO. And here's where some of it gets kind of convoluted. The CEO is selected by the board of directors. The CEO is the one who sets the new mission. And in all honesty, some of the greatest CEOs that there are, you don't know who they are. Most of these great CEOs, they don't live for fame. Steve Jobs, who was a brilliant visionary, a one of a kind, he kind of liked the media. Bill Gates did too. But nobody's heard of Paul, I'm trying to think of his name from Nestle. See, I can't even remember his name. Some of the people who took their companies in entirely new directions, even though they were already successful. Okay, so I want to cover this chapter. Again, my apologies for going like this. I just want to make sure I cover a bit into everything else too. So my apologies. Again, the company starts with a mission. What is the purpose of it? In class, we're going to look at some of the different mission statements, not just from the for-profit companies, but also the non-profit companies, because they have different missions as well. It tells what the goal of the business, why they're in existence. It talks about their economic modes. It talks about their goals, their operating philosophies, how they deal with customers, who are their stockholders, how important are their stockholders. A lot of this is going to go back to what we'll talk about a lot more in detail in class, the difference between Friedman's mentality of the stockholders or with whom we work for, in a sense, and whatever you want to do with your money you can do, versus Freeman, who had a stakeholder approach. Both are. It's not one is right versus one is wrong, but it'll be interesting as we discuss these models with you folks, which ones you actually you align more with. I just want to get. There was a couple of missions in here I want to talk about. Let me give it an example though, a mission statement, and this really does dictate some of the differences in them. And I'm going to look at some charities. One of them is St. Vincent de Paul, and another one is the Salvation Army. This is the mission statement from the Salvation Army. Salvation Army, an international movement, is an evangelical part of the Universal Christian Church. Its message is based on the Bible. Its ministry is motivated by the love of God. Its mission is to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and to meet human needs in his name without discrimination. Now, this is a company that does help, not only as far as the material needs, blankets, clothes, things like that, but also it will help with financial needs. For instance, if let's say you're homeless and you get a job, well, they'll help you get an address. They'll help you get an apartment. They might even shell out your first and last month's rent so you can be established, because that can be very, very difficult. You got a job, but you got no place to go, and you got no place, and you have to have an address. And you need to save money in order to get that, because it's not like, oh, I made $1,000, I can pay $1,000 in rent. A lot of places you got to pay the first, last, and you got to deposit. So they help with those needs, and that is they're very specific. It's a very good organization. You see them with the bells at Christmas time. They collect money, and they have one of the highest percentages. That if you give $1, and I can't remember, don't quote me, I think it's like 98 cents goes to the charity, only 2% on administrative. So they're a very efficient charity, they're a very good charity, but that's their mission. As opposed to, and again, this is not saying this another one's wrong, I want to point this out. St. Vincent de Paul. The Society of St. Vincent de Paul is a Christian charity organization working with poor and disadvantaged people, inspired by our principal founder, Frederick Ozanam, and our patron saint, St. Vincent de Paul. We seek to respond to the call of every Christian receives to bring the love of Christ to those in need. I was hungry, and you gave me food. No work of charity is foreign to the society. We are involved in a diverse range of activities characterized by support and friendship, with person-to-person contact, promote self-sufficiency. St. Vincent de Paul does a very good job trying to employ homeless people. It's not enough to provide short-term material support. Those we assist are also helped to achieve self-sufficiency in the longer term and a sense of self-worth. They work for social justice issues as well. Now let me read one more charity too. And again, these are all good charities. I'm not saying one's better than another, but you can see by their actions how their mission statements have guided this. This is the Goodwill. Goodwill works to enhance the dignity and quality of life of individuals and families by strengthening communities, eliminating barriers to opportunity, and helping people in need reach their full potential through learning and the power of work. This is another company that they operate businesses. There are Goodwill places that people buy clothes. As far as I donate a lot of stuff to Goodwill, and and I get a tax deduction. But that's not really why I do it. It's not a huge tax deduction, but the idea is that people can use something that I don't use. So how great is that? Every person has the opportunity to achieve his fullest potential, so they have a more holistic approach to it. And just by their mission statements, you can tell the direction of the company and how they're managed and their strategies. What do they raise money for? What are they doing, and why? So I think that the nonprofits actually show a better example, because the only problem with some mission statements is that they're almost marketing. We believe in the customer first, and you look at the company and you're like, really? Really? Because I think your customer service is awful, and if that's your customer first attitude, that seems to be something more of a slogan than what really defines who you are. And so again, the gist of it. We'll talk about in class more about the primary goals of a company. One of the things that I will talk about a lot in the first class, and we'll see who's paying attention now, is the fact that why do people start a business? I mean, other than a charity, nonprofit, other than those, why do you start a business? So it'll be interesting to hear your answers on that, because that's going to define a lot of the later on. We are not going to get into a lot of social issues, and it's not that they're not important. We will talk about a lot of these things in terms of economics, not about social elements. So, for instance, we talk about illegal aliens. If we do, we're going to talk about it in the context of economics, not about the social implications of it. That's a different subject. That's a different topic. We'll talk about economically how they impact or what they impact and so forth. So understand that ahead of time. Let me see how am I doing for time. Getting near the end there. So I can't reiterate this enough. We'll talk a lot about quality as well. The definition of quality, where this came from, looking at where quality was in the 1960s and how it was defined. It was really pretty much just manufacturing, had to do more with defects than really quality and anything else. Like, oh, it just is not broken, therefore it's fine. We'll see how the Japanese companies in particular changed the definition of quality and why they went from being crappy cars and crappy stuff to some of the best out there that people want. In fact, the Korean companies did the same thing in the 1980s. Their stuff was crap. The Hyundais were terrible. And now here they are because of their management of it and their dedication to quality and how they manage that whole process of how some of their things are some of the best in the world. I mean, the people now are like, oh, no, I got a Samsung TV. Now that is a note of quality rather than, oh, I got a TV. Oh, yeah, it's Samsung. That's the difference between 1980 and now. We'll talk about Baldrige Awards winners and so forth, and especially agency theory. The last thing I really want to talk about right now is the homework assignment. I got to see, the only thing I haven't posted yet, I know what the discussion questions are, I just want to make sure they're formulated correctly. And again, just a reminder, if you don't get full credit on it and you're on time, read what I wrote, because I always give options for there. You want to be able to make sure you're citing, because I'm going to put a lot of notes in there, citing, and you'll get into the habit and you'll be doing it right. That's my goal, to help you along with that so that you can write better, be more efficient with it. And I'll be honest, if you choose to further your education still, you will be in the right habits and you won't have to learn it. This is something that's master level, and you need to be able to write it such. This is not undergraduate. Sorry, I'm just getting one more thing on here. Sorry. My apologies. The assignments, most of them are going to come from the textbook, and I'm going to choose the case studies. This first one is going to be, for instance, on, I think it's Walmart. Yeah, Walmart online, what to do about Amazon. Now, in the assignments, and again, I'm going to provide the template to kind of help you out. Read what I wrote on the template as well. You can highlight it and replace it, because again, it's a workable template. It's a workable template. So your name's not star student, put your name in, put the date in, but read what I wrote as well to help you along with this. And it has to do with Walmart online and how they're competing with Amazon, being able to evaluate the environment. I've even put in the headings for you: strategic issues, what are the key problems, what are the key issues, and analysis and evaluation and recommendations, as well as, I expect, a reference section. You'll get better at this. All I care about, I don't expect perfection. As long as I see improvement, I'm a happy camper. So this is the writing part of it that I'm talking about, because a lot of people, I know how frustrated I was when I was in my 5th MBA class before a professor pointed out some of the things that I was doing wrong in writing. I didn't know. And I was just frustrated, not because he was helping me. I thanked him for helping me. But it was like, why did it take the fifth teacher to tell me that? I should have learned this a long time ago. They're all easy fixes. So that's the stuff that why I really want what's best for you, and I hope that you understand that. I like to have fun in the class, so we'll have a good time.